What's good, YouTube? It's your boy DJ LiftOFF, and you don't want to miss this flight. Now today I have sitting in front of me the Rane 1 MKII. Extremely excited to dig into this controller. I literally just took it out the box. I haven't really touched any knobs. I haven't tried out the vinyl whatsoever. I haven't got a feel for it whatsoever, so I really want this to be a first look. So with that said, let's hop right into it. The first thing I want to do is hop on these vinyls and see how it feels to scratch. So that's what I'm going to do first. All right, so I just went ahead and got a feel of how the vinyls feel as well as the crossfader. And the first thing I noticed is how amazing this crossfader feels. I feel like most DJs like it pretty loose, and this feels extremely good. I see on here it says precision feel, adjustable fader. So I don't know if that's just for these faders here. These might be adjustable. However, the default setting for this crossfader feels amazing. So on my left deck, I have 2 washers under my vinyl here, and on the right deck, I don't have any washers. So I can definitely feel an extreme difference as far as like the tension on the right deck. So when I was kind of doing my chirps and a couple of my flares, I can definitely feel that tension over here. For me personally, I like the way the left deck feels a lot better with the 2 washers. So if you're someone who does like to adjust, you know, how the vinyl feels, you definitely have that capability. Let me do a quick spin test just so I can see how much it spins. You can see the spin over here, and you can see this side doesn't really spin back too much because it doesn't have those washers. Again, you can see this one is spinning way longer than this one. So this one feels a lot more natural. As far as the Rane 1, I wasn't a huge fan of the way the Rane 1 felt. This is definitely an improvement, I would definitely say. In the feeling, it's the same feel of the vinyl, I would say. There wasn't necessarily anything negative about the Rane 1. It just wouldn't be my like #1 go-to if I was going for a motorized platter as far as a controller. However, with this improved crossfader, feels great. I mean, the vinyl still definitely do feel good. At the end of the day, no worries as far as scratching. Definitely feels extremely comfortable. Moving on from there, I feel like I just got super excited and just hopped right into this, you know, this first look because I was just excited to get my hands really on this crossfader. However, I did want to just talk about the look of this MKII. I think the white looks extremely cool. For me, this just looks super duper clean. To also talk about just the durability of it, it feels super durable. It's not a super heavy controller, but it's not light at the same time. Like if I pick it up and put it down, I would say it's on the heavier side, but not too heavy to the point where it's like annoying to probably lug around. You could definitely throw this in some type of flight case and I'm sure you'd be fine. Yes, definitely feels durable, definitely metal. Feels great, looks great. So moving on from the vinyl and the crossfader, I definitely want to hop into these pads. So I first just want to feel how they feel in the first place. So I'm pressing these for the very first time. And honestly, they feel pretty good. They kind of click in just a little bit, but they also feel soft at the same time. I'm not sure if that makes sense. Like if I was to compare this to my DJing S9, those don't click in whatsoever, but I love the way the pads feel there. Just as a comparison, these feel like they click in a little bit more, but they also feel natural. Like you don't feel the click in too much. All right, so now let's hop into the actual features of the pads. Of course, you have this hot cue right here, pretty standard across all controllers. I'm gonna go ahead and try to double tap this. Of course, now if we go ahead and use these same cues, as you can see, it's gonna drop down by semitone. As you can see in the software, we have -4, -3, -2, -1. Also pretty standard on some controllers. We have our save loop, we have our roll. Definitely love to have the roll section. You can hold that. So if I had something playing, I could just hold this just like this. And of course you can change the timing on that in your software right here as well. If you wanted to have 1/4, you could change that, or if you move this back over, now it's at 1/8. So you definitely have some flexibility there. Right next to the roll, we have our sampler. Now, one really cool thing about the MK2, as you probably already know, is there is a sampler level knob right at the front of the controller. Definitely useful to have. I personally don't like to use too many samples. Like, I know DJs that use effects really creatively and they use them really well. So I'm sure this is perfect to have to maybe raise the level on some, drop the level on other ones. I don't use the sampler too much. So I don't, it's not like a big, huge thing for me, but I know tons of DJs probably find this super cool to have. So you do have that sampler knob in the front. And then this new button right here, we have our stems. So as I just pressed this for the first time, I'm gonna assume this is just like any other controller. Of course, you take that out, you take out the vocal, you can take out the melody, you can take out the bass and the drums and add them back in. And then some of these bottoms down here will actually echo those out, like this right here will echo out the vocal. So pretty standard as far as stems right here. Now the feature buttons, these also feel pretty similar to the buttons or to the pads. I feel like they were maybe a little bit more clicky on the Rane 1, the first version, but now these feel a little bit better. I would say they feel a little bit more smooth and easier to click. So definitely kudos there. If we move over to the right, I believe this looks the exact same as the first model. We have our loop right here. I like the placement of this loop in general. I like this placement on the last one as well, because it's just easy to get to. If I'm scratching or I'm doing something on my pads, I can easily come over here and press this loop, versus if it was somewhere up here, I don't have to move my hands too much to use or to enable this loop. You also have your pitch bends here. These are really useful to use if you are transitioning and you need to just speed a song up really quickly, or you need to slow it down. You can definitely do that. You can also try to use the vinyl, but it's probably a little bit easier to actually just use these pitch buttons or these pitch bend buttons to kind of speed up or slow down a track. Now let's move up. We have our slip button. This also turns our motor on and off. Nothing super special there. I do really want to see how these feel. This is the first time I've moved these pitch faders. This feels really smooth. Definitely just glides up and down, and it does have that lock in the middle. Now the lock in the middle sounds, or it feels like it's not necessarily worn, because it's not worn. It's obviously a brand new controller, but it doesn't have that like really strong lock. You know how some controllers, whether it's like your filter knob or whatever the knob is, it feels like it locks in place really well. This one doesn't lock in place super well, but it does have the lock feature, which is nice. So that may be a big thing for you, it may not. Just pretty much noting that. However, the feel of it definitely feels good in general as I go back and forth or go up and down. Now moving up, we have our range right here. Pretty sure if you just click this once, it'll probably change the range. And yes, it does. Goes from 8 to plus 16 to plus 50. Some controllers, like the range button is like weird, like you have to hold it or double click it. I've seen all different types of range buttons. This is actually super easy to use. You just press it one time. It's right here in the middle, easy to see. Definitely love to see that. I'm gonna move up now. So we have our stem effects instrumental, and we have, or really our instrumental stem effects at the bottom if we're holding shift. And then we have acapella, and we have our stem effects. So I'm gonna hop into this a little bit. I'm gonna assume if I press this acapella up here, it's just gonna activate the acapella. So let me go ahead and just get a random song playing. All right, so these stems buttons here, if I go ahead and press this top one, that of course just gives me the acapella. Bring it back in. Now this will give me the instrumental. Now I'm not exactly sure what this stem effects button does, so I'm gonna go ahead and hold shift. I'm gonna press it for the first time and see what happens. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So essentially that's acting as an echo. So for this stem effects, I'm not sure if I can change that from an echo to something else. It'll be pretty cool if you could do that. Again, first time I'm using it, so I'll find that out in time. However, I'm gonna assume that if I go ahead and press this again, it'll bring it back in. Okay, now I'm gonna assume if I hold shift and press the instrumental with, or holding shift, press the instrumental button, now the instrumental is gonna actually fade out, or the acapella will fade out and bring in the instrumental. So that makes sense. So if I hold shift and I press instrumental, it's gonna give me the instrumental, and it's gonna actually go ahead and echo out the acapella just like that. So that's pretty cool. Again, if you can change those stem effects, that would be pretty cool. But however, even if it's just the echo there, definitely another way. If you want to do something else down here or have something else prepare on the pads and you wanted to just use this to echo out, whether it's the acapella or instrumental, definitely cool to have. I kind of would have preferred if the acapella and instrumental button was lower. I feel like on one of the other Rane products, these buttons were actually on the side. I can't remember if it was the Performer or whichever controller. However, in general, it's not that big of a deal whether they are down here or they are up here. Now, moving up, we have our stop time knob right here. So this is just going to essentially change how long it takes for a track to stop. So if I go ahead and turn this all the way up,
so when I hit it, sound like
that's how long the track takes to stop if I have it all the way up. Now, I actually do use this, not necessarily a lot, but I have done some pretty cool transitions where I'll kind of use the reverb, increase the reverb a little bit, and I'll actually stop the track really slowly. And then I'll either scratch in the track on the other side or I'll just have it fading in. There's definitely tons of different things you can do. So it's definitely useful to have this stop time here. So now I'm looking at the top of the controller, definitely a new set of buttons that I don't remember on the first version. So I see hot cue, I see S-Bank, sampler, and stems. Now again, I'm not sure what all of these do, and I also see 2 dots, so I'm gonna assume that means if you double click it, does that do a beat jump? I'm not sure. Let's hold shift and click it. So that turns this off. So I can see red, red, yellow, yellow. So these are actually cue buttons. So you essentially have another set of cues at the top. So if I hold mode, now we have hot cue, we have S banks. I'm not sure what S banks would necessarily do. Sound banks, I'm gonna assume. Possibly. We also have our sampler. We all know what the sampler essentially is. You can load different tracks into your sampler and use that. And then I'm gonna press stems right here. So that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and see how the stems work with this.
I'm gonna take a bougie ass tail when and let her pick up whatever she want. CC Gucci hippo take up whatever she want. She pissed me off somehow, she still get whatever she want.
All right, so essentially those buttons up there gives you another set of hot cues. I'm gonna guess that's sound banks, possibly up at the top. I'll figure that out at some point. We also have our sampler, we have our stems. Now the hot cue and stems work just like the hot cue and stems at the bottom. These buttons up here definitely have that click. You can hear the click, you can feel the click. So really easy to click. I kind of in general prefer the softer feeling buttons. However, again, this is definitely personal preference. They feel fine to click. The buttons are big enough to where if they were a little bit smaller, they might be easy to kind of like press 2 at once, depending on how big your finger is. However, I think they're spaced out pretty decently well. All right, also at the top of the controller, I see this mode button here, and it allows me, I'm gonna assume, to double click here. Or if I double click once, doesn't do anything. So if I hold it, double click. Okay, so I'm gonna assume that means my beat jump. So I see red, yellow, yellow, red. So if I press the first red button, it's jumping backwards. If I press it, this other red one on the other side is jumping forward. And it looks like it's jumping forward maybe like half a beat maybe. I'm gonna assume there's a way to increase the amount of, the actual beat jump value is. So like if you wanna beat jump by, let's say 1 beat or 2 beats or 4 beats or 8 beats, I'm sure there's a way to change that. I'm not sure exactly right at this moment, but definitely a cool feature once I do figure out how to change that beat jump. Right after that, we have our stem roll here. So let's go ahead and see how this works.
Did you realize she won't? She pissed me off, she still give what she won't. Talking about it, like I'm singing Maze, I made her tell me what.
Okay, so with that stem roll, you can essentially just use that as kind of like a roll section that you have down here. So just pretty much another roll section. So now I'm gonna go ahead and click stem effects. Let's see what we have here.
She on a fire trip. I know pussy power, buying shit. Friends ain't jacking me, you must be lying to your friends. Visa with the giants up again. Shining once again. Rated on the spot of my DMs. Right back in. Lock in. Like it's hot again.
All right, so each of those buttons does a different effect. I actually think that's actually pretty cool. I can definitely see myself using that. All right, now the last button over here is gonna be our A loop. So if I go ahead and double tap that, I'm gonna assume this is gonna be an auto loop. That is an auto loop, so you pretty much have 1 beat here, you have 2 beats here, 4 beats here, 8 beats right here, and I'm gonna assume that's gonna just correspond with however you have this set up here. Actually, nope, it's gonna always be 1 beat. So this first one here is gonna be 1 beat, 2 beats, 4 beats, and 8 beats. So now let me go ahead and just, as I said, I wasn't gonna make the video that long. I feel like it's definitely getting long. So I'm just gonna talk about the rest of the controller and how it feels really quickly. The faders feel great. This is just the default settings right out of the box. It does say these are adjustable. However, these feel amazing to me. I think one of the things I always talk about is if you are a scratch DJ, I always say whether you can use the faders to scratch, you could definitely absolutely use these to scratch. They are super duper fluid. So if you were doing like stabs, something like this, you can easily use these to do whatever type of scratching you want. Feel really, really good. And it also passes my test as far as a slow fade up as well. I do a lot of slow fade ups just like this. So this is a really, really good feeling fader. Probably one of the better ones I've ever felt. Here we of course have our pedal effects. These feel pretty good. You lock, kind of a loud lock when you press that forward. But you can always, of course, lock your effect by pressing that upwards, or you can just use it for a certain amount of time by pressing it downwards. These feel durable, feel good. Love the blue blinking light. Love the blue, love the colors again on the white in general. As I'm moving up, we have our channel effects right here. This feels pretty good, definitely feels pretty fluid. The button or the knob is kind of small. I wish it was a little bit bigger. Not that it's bad, again, maybe I prefer bigger knobs, but definitely still feels good, definitely still feels fluid, just kind of a personal thing for me. It also does of course lock in the middle. The lock again doesn't feel super sturdy. Like again, some controllers when it goes to the middle, it like locks. It really is like bam, you're in the middle and it takes a little bit of pressure to move it off. So over time I could see these possibly not locking as well. However, I've only had it open for 5 minutes, 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. So I don't know how that would feel. But in general, definitely feels good. Moving up from there, we do finally have hardware effects on this controller, which is amazing. I remember one of the downfalls of the Rane 1 first version for me definitely was the fact that it didn't have those hardware effects. So love the fact that it does have these hardware effects. And with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and try them out really quickly just to see how they sound.
Got a nigga feeling like a sucker yet again. Close on my emotions, then I rush and let it. What up? Friends ain't jacking me, you must be lying to your friends. They know I'm a piece, I wait the giants up again. Shining once again. Ran it up, I told her mama slide in my DMs. Now I'm right back in. Locked in. Shawty got that dress on, so those then she got it tripping off another. Fuck it yet again. Close on my emotions, then I rush.
All right, so there are all of the effects right there. You have the echo, the reverb, the matrix, the recycler, the scale down, and you have the echo out. Now, all of these work pretty well. Definitely for me, I always prefer to use hardware effects. The echo for me sounded really, really good. I could definitely see myself using that. Now, one cool thing about Rane or like the Rane 1 and the Rane 1 MKII is you definitely do, or you can adjust the way this reverb sounds, and you can adjust the way all of the effects sound, probably down to the T. I don't usually do that many or that big of a change to the effects, but I definitely like having the capability of doing that. Right above that, we of course have our standard. We have our low, our medium, our high. We also have the ability to use the stems on these buttons as well. So you have the low, you have the drum, so you could of course take your drums out with this same knob, as well as use it for bass. You have your melody and mid in the middle, and you have your high and your vocal up top. Me personally, again, I don't find myself using the knobs to use stems that much. However, if I was trying to be creative in a certain type of transition, I could definitely see myself doing that. Like if I wanted to slowly bring down the drums and bring them back up, or if I wanted to fade in the acapella or do something to that effect or of that nature, I could definitely see myself using those. So definitely a bonus to have those within these same knobs. Of course, at the top, we just have some levels. We also have our main level and our booth level at the top as well. These feel super duper fluid. These feel great, feel good. Right here, we can switch from hardware effects to software effects. We have our mic effects on. The start and stop button feels similar to the last controller. I've always liked the way Rane makes their start and stop buttons feel. Definitely feels natural. You also feel that click in there. You have your Q button, your sync button, your shift button. Let's see, the actual buttons to, you know, the cursor to go through your music, these feel really, really fluid. They also, of course, click down as well to actually select the track. You have your back button and your low prep here. On the front, we have 2 mics, and we also have our low and high frequencies, so we can adjust the lows and the highs directly on the controller. It's always great to have 2 mic inputs. They're both XLR or balanced as well. Definitely awesome. As we go over, we already talked about the sampler level. We also have our deck contour, so that'll change the way the faders work essentially by turning that down or up. I like to keep mine just directly in the middle. You can also reverse that as well for deck 1 and deck 2. You have your crossfader contour on this side. Of course, if you're going to be scratching, you definitely typically want to have this all the way set to the right. If we go over to the right, we have our Q mix, we have our Q level, and we also have the ability to split this as well with an on and off switch here. And then we also have a jack for 3.5 as well as a 1/4 inch for our headphones as well. And now to talk about the back a little bit, I actually have a quick picture that I'm looking at. So those are those mic inputs that I was just talking about. We also have an aux in. Always great to have an aux in. I'm always using an aux, whether I have an iPad, a phone, something is usually always plugged into that aux. So definitely awesome to have those RCAs back there. We also have deck 1 and deck 2. We have some extra RCAs right there. We also have, of course, our main outs, XLR booth outs. I can't remember the last time that I've seen a controller with XLRs with booth outs. So if you're someone who always uses a balanced connection and you love using XLRs, definitely going to give you that high quality sound. Definitely cool to have that for your booth. You can also adjust that motor torque, whether especially if you're a scratch DJ, if you wanted to have more tension or less tension, you can change that from high to low. High will give you a little bit more tension, and then low will give you a little bit less tension. I feel like for the most part, I like to have my torque set on high. So in this initial first preview, first look that I just did, I actually had that on low, so I'll actually be excited to try this out on the high setting as well and let you know how that feels. Moving over to the right, we just have our power button, and we have our power, essentially just power over on our right side as far as the picture, but really our left side if you're standing in front of the controller. So again, that is my first look of this Rane 1 MKII. Again, I didn't go super deep into like all of the technology. I really just wanted to give you all a brief overlook, just open it for the first time, see what the effects do, see how it feels, kind of just talk about it for the first time that I've seen it. I know there's tons of DJs who have already talked about all of the technical aspects, so definitely check them out as well. Definitely love to always look at Mojax. He definitely gives really, really great breakdowns. But with that said, I will catch y'all on the next flight. One of these next flights will definitely be me taking another look at this controller. So if you did enjoy this particular video, please press the like button, please press the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you know the next time that I upload a video. And without further ado, I already said it, but we'll say it again. I will catch y'all on the next